views expressed by the host of this podcast are not opinion-based or for entertainment purposes. They are actually facts and truth, no matter if other people like it or not. It is the Detroit sports truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Hey there, Detroit sports fanatics, and welcome to episode 180 of the Detroit Sports Truth on Spreaker. I'm Taylor Phillips. I'm with my top co-host on the podcast, Ed Smith. We were like the angry George Blaha and Greg Kelser in our last episode.
Hope for a more calmer approach tonight.
Yep. Absolutely. Tonight we're going to cover a very special top story. Justin Spiro's tweets on Twitter at Darko State News about the Lansing State Journal and the rest of the Detroit media covering Spartans quarterback Connor Cook as his crew prepares to kick off with the Alabama Crimson Tide in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, part of the college football playoff semifinal. And then we'll transition to the Lions and preview their Monday Night Football game against the New Orleans Saints. And then we'll switch to hockey and preview the Red Wings and Vancouver Canucks and Calgary Flames and further analyze their third period woes from an article written by the Rooster, Bill Roos. And finally, we switch to basketball. The Pistons. They end their homestand Friday night at the Palace against the Chicago Bulls. And I want to point out they need to defend the three-point line a lot better. But first and foremost,
touchdown MSU!
We touch on Michigan State Spartans football. Graham Couch posted an article on Twitter at his Twitter feed at Graham_Couch. Criticism of Connor Cook's personality is overblown. Column on MSU's authentic QB. The link is attached below. The photo is below the link. And it starts out like this. Connor Cook is an easy target for criticism because he's interesting and authentic and flawed like every interesting person. Michigan State's senior quarterback has come under fire of late. As the stage gets bigger, as his NFL career gets closer, the spotlight is becoming a microscope. During the trophy presentation at the Big Ten championship game, Cook gave ammunition to everyone who has ever disliked him when he shunned Ohio State legend Archie Griffin. The optics were dreadful. Cook quickly apologized. Too late. The Twitterverse was abuzz. Questions resurfaced about his leadership. Why again wasn't he a team captain? His sideline demeanor and his indulgence in being a big man on campus. The awareness that makes Cook such an incredible quarterback on the field sometimes escapes him in other public settings. He can be obvious as he was when he took the MVP trophy from Griffin. He can be snippy and emotional. He can also be engaging and polite. Most importantly, whatever he is given, whatever he is in a given moment is real. He is not a con artist. And he's one of the best pro-style college quarterbacks I've seen, Graham Couch has seen. It's his pocket presence, his feel and courage with linebackers approaching with chaos at his feet that separates him from so many others. NFL Network draft analyst Mike Mayock said after breaking down Cook's performance at Michigan in October, quote, "The highest compliment I can give him is that under pressure with several free runners on the blitz where he knows he's going to take a shot, he stayed in and delivered the football with accuracy. Cook's predecessor, Kirk Cousins," unquote, Cook's predecessor, Kirk Cousins, didn't have that, nor did Brian Hoyer before him. Both are starting in the NFL these days. MSU co-offensive coordinator Dave Warner said Wednesday when asked what separates Cook from other college quarterbacks and those who played at MSU before him. Quote, I think probably the thing that sticks out first and foremost is the accuracy. He's got a very good sense of timing, anticipating windows. I think he throws the ball down the field more than the quarterbacks we've had in the past, which might be good, might not be good, unquote. The national conversation about Cook over the last week has been less flattering. ESPN NFL draft analyst Todd McShay said the following on ESPN radio when asked if Cook helped his draft stock by returning to MSU for his senior year. McShay said, quote, on the field helped, off the field there are some real questions. It's amazing, and everyone I talked to, including the NFL scout, whether it was the fact that he was not a captain, just the way he carries himself, it's a little bit of the Chicago Bears quarterback Jay Cutler, where it just kind of turns people off, unquote. The Milwaukee Journal Sentinel quoted an anonymous NFL scout as saying, quote, how much does he really like football? How much is he going to work at it? He likes being a celebrity, unquote. God help the team who employs this anonymous scout. He clearly missed Cook morphing from an erratic sophomore who lost a position battle to Andrew Maxwell to being considered the nation's top senior quarterback, hence the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award. Cook wanted no part of this discussion Wednesday morning at the Spartans' East Lansing Cotton Bowl Media Day. Check that. He was smart enough not to speak his mind on this one. He said, quote, I'm here to talk about Alabama. I'm not here to talk about that right now, unquote. Cook will get his chance to answer his critics eye to eye. He'll have to explain why his teammates saw 3 other players more fitting to be their captains and admit that, like every normal red-blooded college quarterback, he enjoys the fruits of his existence. He is, after all, the living dream. He should enjoy it. I'd resent him if he didn't. And NFL teams in a quarterback-driven league will then have to decide if they want to risk passing on a quarterback who is 34-4 in 3 years as a starter in the Big Ten. Nothing in his leadership style or lifestyle has prevented him from winning at an unprecedented rate at MSU. Leadership comes in many forms. Cook may not be the classic leader. He may not make the cover of Wholesome Living or provide perfect-sounding lines to television cameras, as so many athletes do, but the resiliency, the fearlessness in the pocket, the big-time throws in critical moments, the shoulder-first 4th and 2 run in the Big Ten championship with an injured shoulder. What the hell kind of leader does the NFL want? Cook is among the driving forces behind perhaps the most improbable program rise and culture change in modern college football history, and he's done it in an offense that translates to the NFL. The Spartans for decades were the Detroit Lions. Now they're the Seattle Seahawks, and Cook is a heck of a lot more interesting than Russell Wilson. That might hurt him. It shouldn't. Contact Graham Couch by email at gcouch@lsj.com. Once again, follow him on Twitter at Graham_Couch. And Justin Spiro went after him quite. G.E. Miller replied, Justin, you're an embarrassing, slappy tweeter. Please be better. And he replied to him, that doesn't make any sense. Slappy for what or whom? Mark Hensler, a couple others, including Mark Hensler, butted in, and Hensler said, Cook is a good college QB, but his accuracy isn't exactly great. Best season is 59%, kind of like Stafford. And how did that turn out? He wasn't worth top pick. Cook should be first rounder, but not worth top 5. Spiro said, disagree. Stafford was worthy of the first overall pick. Best QB in that class by a mile. Team needed that Team needed one badly. And then Hensler replied back, Stafford was the best of the class, but did have accuracy concerns that have showed throughout his career. Let me take a sip here. Water. Then let me see here. Then Spiro tweeted to the public, the MSU assigned Detroit media has rallied around Connor Cook, dismissed every concern and criticism, and applauds his existence. Shocking. Then he tweeted, I was so convinced Graham Couch, at Graham_Couch, would say there might be something to these Connor Cook detractors. I'm stunned he took the pro MSU route. He replied a couple times to Sam Flory, if you can't understand the difference between a potential franchise quarterback's red flags and any other position, no helping you. And Winston was an overwhelming talent. Jameis Winston, yeah, I think he meant. And his teammates loved him. You think there's some conspiracy against Connor Cook? Call him a slappy. Then he tweeted to the public again, the MSU fans, in parentheses, and writers, which is the same thing, out of parentheses, are embarrassing themselves with this Cook thing. All of these scouts have it out for him. Then he tweeted back to Sam Flory again. You keep going right on ahead with. You keep going on right ahead, suggesting the 46 national sources entirely independent of one another are hatching a conspiracy. And then he replied back, ignorant haters, unquote, things Slappy say. Those dudes are NFL scouts. They don't hate, they evaluate. There are concerns. And then couple public tweets. I guess the 186 scouts and executives interviewed who unanimously agreed there are major concerns with Connor Cook are just haters with the number 8 in that word. Who also called dubious pro scouts and executives haters? Fans of Tim Tebow, Jimmer Fredette, and Johnny Manziel. Then he tweeted to Sam Flory again, yeah, that is not the issue at all. Tim Tebow was a winner. Want him as your franchise quarterback. It's about concerns at the next level. And then had a bit of a conversation with Greg Henson and tweeted to him, he loves himself some Connor Cook. He works hard, but isn't the film geek that most elite NFL quarterbacks are. Partier not serious. And then the Lions guy, then he tweeted to the Lions guy and Jeff Moss, meh, Bradford, yes. Russell and Quinn were taken by dumb owners and were very skeptically viewed. Then to Sam Flory, he could be. He's loaded with talent, and look at the dearth of good quarterbacks in the NFL. Not the argument. There are concerns. Then a couple public tweets. Connor Cook is a huge partier. Out several nights a week. There aren't many party boy franchise quarterbacks in the NFL. Keep shilling. For the record, I love Connor Cook. He's going to have at worst a nice long career as an average NFL quarterback, but it's stupid to dismiss concerns. Then he tweeted to Greg Henson, it happens, but it's rare, and Big Ben Roethlisberger is a partier but also takes his craft extremely seriously. Cook is a total goofball. Then to Sam Flory, well, yeah, but a relatively high level of concern. Didn't think that need to be clarified. Then to the Punisher 1023, Obbs. So did Manziel and countless others. The NFL is a different planet. Then Then One Public. There's a reason so many underwhelming college QBs do better than the celebrity college QBs on the next level. QBs in the NFL is 80% mental. Then he tweeted to Jeff Moss, "Did you like the part where Graham wrote that he would resent Cook if he didn't live up the BMOC party life? Sick." And then to Gladdy on the rise, this stuff predates that incident by a long time. And then to Sam Flory, "Look at your timeline. It's an embarrassment. You're the biggest slappy on earth. Why bother chiming in? Pro MSU take? No way." This isn't a then to the public. This isn't a discussion of Cook's pro prospects. This is about an entire fan base plus media dismissing consensus national concern out of hand. Then to Sam Flory again, "Lost a debate. Your entire argument is they hate us because they ain't us. Pipe down, fanboy. You are a robot with no discernment." Then to C. Crowder, "It goes beyond that too. The body language. The fact the guy is out partying all the time, there are red flags." Then to the public, "Can we all agree that invocation of the term haters is an automatic disqualification in an argument?" Let's skip a couple replies here. And then these slapdick college fans that take up for their team program every time regardless of circumstance, why bother chiming in? We know. Dismissing these concerns not condemnations, with Connor Cook means you think the entire NFL has it out for him. No way around it. Then to Kim Jong-il, "Same thing Manziel's defender said. He's in college. Leave him alone. That went well." Then two replies to Cornell. One of them saying, pitched the idea on the Darko. "Too many key members with conflicting schedules. Otherwise, I heard crickets." Then to Miguel Locuta at mlocuta6. 753 people have made that Callahan-Cook comparison. Old bit. In the words of Matt Derry. Skip a couple replies here. The MSU fan base is attacking the widely accepted Cook as red flags assessment with haters gonna hate. Highly intellectual. This isn't even about bashing Connor Cook. I love the guy. I love that guy. This is a critique of the embarrassing slapdick behavior of fans and the media. Connor Cook would terrify me early in the draft, anywhere in the second round. No-brainer to take him there with his very high upside. Then to Mark Hensler, disagree. Stafford was worthy of the first overall pick. Best QB in that class by a mile. Team needed one badly. Then to Mitch Zimmon, 22. I think always hammered is a little much, but he apparently goes out multiple times per week and is drinking late. And 4 consecutive public tweets. You can take any 2 former Spartans from the D'Antonio era and play them against Alabama on the 31st. That's New Year's Eve. Who do you take? It's not hard finding a source on Connor Cook's heavy partying. Do you know an MSU student? You have a source on Connor Cook's partying. I take Dark West Denard, and Devin Thomas. Team totally changes with an elite corner and another top-shelf wide receiver. Greg Jones hasn't even been mentioned. Pardon me. I don't take Bell. Would be great to have him, but the running backs have been getting it done. He'd be like my 5th or 6th pick. I wonder if Max Bulla would get himself suspended for the Cotton Bowl if we tried to re-add him. He'd have 2 whole weeks to mess up. That's where Spiro touches on Max Bulla after Tiny at JTUINHOFF replied to Justin, Cousins and Denard, just in case Cook can't throw farther than Sean Hill. Then question for previous attendees. Is the killer Christmas party worth it if you don't show up until 9:30 or 10? I could leave it easier with the failure of our media to get us the Bulla story if they at least apologize for the failure. Nope, defiance. Let's see here. Then Spiro retweeted Moss's tweet. I mean, Justin Spiro would have sex with the city of East Lansing. No bigger MSU fan I know. Has zero respect for those dummies. And then Spiro replied, if someone doesn't see it by now, they never will. I saw Rexroad and Couch fist bump after Elite 8 win. I think, then to the public, I think Joe Rexroad would have told Mark Felt, thanks but no thanks. The 94th most difficult to uncover the story about Michigan football in John U. Bacon's book was still more difficult than getting the Bulla scoop. How fast would John U. Bacon get the Bulla story if I got him drunk one night and challenged him? Over under is 6 minutes. Can we get John U. Bacon on the Julius Caesar murder? Guy would provide a detailed list of conspirators and their motives in a weekend. Do you people think it's some freak coincidence that John U. Bacon publishes entire books with private info powerful people didn't want out? John U. Bacon must have every room on the U of M campus bugged. He's not human. Maybe he will let Couch and Rexroad intern for him, or be ATA. Then he quoted Couch's statement, I'd resent him if he didn't, and mentioned his name, and then went black, and posted a photo of the Lansing State Journal's bit there, saying Cook will get his chance to answer his critics eye to eye. He'll have to explain why his teammates saw 3 other players more fitting to be their captains, and admit that, like every normal red-blooded college quarterback, he enjoys the fruits of his existence, like I've read before. He's, after all, living the dream. He should enjoy it. I'd resent him if he didn't. My God. And then Spiro tweeted, uh-oh, Graham Couch is getting a little testy, and posted a photo that said, of a piece of an article that said, leadership comes in many forms. Cook may not be the classic leader. He may not cover he may not make the cover of Wholesome Living, or provide perfect sounding lies to television cameras, as so many athletes do. But the resiliency, the fearlessness in the pocket, the big time throws in critical moments, the shoulder first 4th and 2 run in the Big Ten championship with an injured shoulder. What the hell kind of leader does the NFL want? And then Spiro tweeted, if you don't think the fact Connor Cook parties several nights a week deep into the night is a legitimate concern for an NFL team, shut up. Skip ahead here. David Harns, a senior writer and senior editor for iSports MSU, for at iSports MSU, tweeted, "Here's what happens when two unqualified guys, Justin Spiro and I, at Darko State News and I, talk about who is qualified to talk about Connor Cook." And he posted a link headlining Michigan State football, two unqualified guys talk about who is qualified to talk about Connor Cook. I'm going to post that on Facebook, post that article on Facebook right about now. And then tweet it. You can follow at iSports MSU and at iSports Web. You can follow David Harns at iSports Dave. He covers the Spartans on iSports. He wrote, "Justin, according to the Twitters, you hate Connor Cook and everything he stands for. Do I have that right?" Spiro replied, "As usual, the Twitters spelled Connor Cook's name correctly." That is about all they got right on this one, though. My commentary has been primarily focused on the local media, most recently Graham Couch and their flippant dismissal of an apparent consensus concern in the NFL regarding Cook's future at the next level. David Harns replied, "What makes you think that those who cover him the closest, the local media, aren't the most qualified to judge him in this regard? I'm not around him as much as they are. I feel like even I have gotten a pretty good feel for who he is over the last few years." Spiro replied, "The local media has no credibility with me in terms of their willingness to offer a harsh or even fairly critical assessment when appropriate. You believe the local media is more qualified to know all there is to know about Connor Cook than NFL personnel. Then explain to me why every organization in the NFL knew exactly why Max Bullough was suspended for the Rose Bowl while the local media helplessly flailed around while swearing the truth was unattainable. Their close proximity to the program didn't do them any good then. The Graham Couches and Joe Rexroads of the world want to play it safe and keep everything comfortable at the press conference. The NFL scouts and executives don't care about that." And then David Harns added this, "Nobody in the local media swore the truth regarding Max Bullough was unattainable. Every reporter I know figured out why Bullough was suspended and tried to get a source to go on the record with that information. There's a big difference between knowing something and being able to report it with journalistic integrity. Most credible journalists aren't willing to use anonymous or unnamed sources. How does this relate to Connor Cook? Many people who have covered Cook know things about him that they can't report, but that information informs their overall opinion of him. There are always stories behind the stories. You either trust the media members to report these stories with integrity or you don't. I've been around those guys and ladies for 6 years now. I'd say about 80% of them do it the right way, including their takes on Cook." Then Spiro added, "It was certainly unattainable to the extent that it could be used journalistically, and even casting that failure aside, where was the criticism of Max Bullough for doing something, whatever it was, selfish enough to warrant a suspension?" Let me take a step here. "The entire incident was treated with kid gloves by that contingent of MSU writers. Feel free to prove me wrong and give me a link to the Graham Couch or Joe Rexroad article that called Bullough out for his selfish conduct. This relates to Connor Cook only in that you are defending the local media as the finest and best source of information on all things MSU. If I want to know what Mark D'Antonio's ringtone is or what color the carpet is in the Spartan Stadium press box, I'll give Graham Couch a call. When it comes to an assessment of Connor Cook's pro potential and possible concerns regarding his future, I will take my chances with the NFL personnel. And these concerns with Cook's leadership, personality, etc., are not the product of one or two sources. It is a recurring theme among prognosticators. Let's throw out the NFL executives and scouts for a second. I can't look at the way Connor Cook carries himself and have concerns of my own. I love him, but he's a goofball. And when you look at the elite NFL quarterbacks, it's tough to find many goofballs. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees. To excel at that position at the highest level, you almost always have to be obsessed with the game. You have to be a serious person. Even Ben Roethlisberger, who has had embarrassing moments off field, is a football junkie. Cook is not a thinking man's player, and it's tough to find many successful NFL QBs with his personality. Yeah, this is a long one here. But I'll fill in one more question here. We got to move on here. I think we're taking up a lot of time. Here are two Graham Couch's article on the subject here and here. I think he handled it fairly in those articles. The Couches and the Rexroads of the world are critical when they have to be. That's why I trust their opinion in a scenario like this. A scenario when there are no smoking guns that prove Cook is a bad guy, or even as he is disliked by his teammates. Is Cook perfect? No, of course not. But is it smart for NFL scouts to believe the rumors and the innuendo rather than the opinion of impartial journalists? I'd say no. I'm not impartial and I know it, but I have to agree with these comments that came from one of the MSU beat writers. Not Rexroad, not Couch, paraphrased. Quote, his goofy nature and his honesty are what make him interesting. He's flippant though, and that makes him come off like a jerk sometimes. He's completely who he is all the time, and he doesn't realize it can rub people the wrong way. But he is consistently himself. He is consistently himself, and that's admirable. Unquote. So he is who he is. He is who he is. The question then becomes, quote, can he lead a team with all those quirks and personality idiosyncrasies? Unquote. That's where you look at his history and say, yes, of course he can, because he has. And Spiro replied, I appreciate you digging up those Couch pieces, and that is farther than I have seen him take anything. Still, I consider his commentary insufficiently critical given the gravity of that situation. He seems to merely point out that Bulla did something stupid, statement of the obvious, and would be best served being open about it. Couch was wrong here. The truth never came out. Ask any MSU student who frequents the bars in East Lansing. They all have a Connor Cook story. I've seen him myself at Rick's American Cafe doing more than nursing a single beverage. Is there anything wrong or illegal here? Absolutely not. I'm sure I've made a much bigger fool of myself twice in the same spot he stood that night at Rick's during my MSU years. But Cook isn't your average college kid. And if I'm running an NFL team, I don't want a guy notorious for bar hopping as my franchise quarterback. Any list you can find of the best 15 to 20 quarterbacks from the last two generations yields very few party boys. His reputation exists for a reason. To suggest the rampant concerns among NFL scouts and executives is entirely without basis is to suggest complicity among several unaffiliated NFL personnel. This isn't an NFL conspiracy to bring down a student athlete at MSU, and if it's not that, all these professionals standing in anonymity entirely off base? You tell me that Connor Cook can, of course, lead a team because he has done that, but Connor Cook's ability to lead a college team is both unquestioned and entirely irrelevant. frankly, no one knows for sure he can be a franchise quarterback in the NFL. We just use every piece of information we can and make our best guess. And the MSU fan base and the writers that cover the program are convinced these red flags are much ado about nothing. The same people saying that's just how Connor Cook is, and quote, so a college kid parties a lot and who cares, quote, are the same fans who are apologists for Johnny Manziel in the face of his numerous detractors. Just two more, but I think you guys can read the rest. But moving along here, I would be sad. Spiro tweeted, I would be sad about the blowback on my Connor Cook take if there was a single critic who didn't take the MSU side on literally everything. And told, hey Phil, he's an elite college quarterback. He didn't mean he was an elite NFL quarterback. He's not. He hasn't reached the NFL yet. He did tweet to M-Rock's 8 Sonny, the best QBs in the NFL, with rare exceptions, weren't out partying several nights per week. You're ignoring history. Then he tweeted publicly, if I'm an NFL team spending a top 10 draft choice on a QB who needs to be a franchise player or I lose my job, I want a boring grown-up. Then he tweeted the Dodgers, George Lombard. I remember Lynn Hennings saying he was the steal of the offseason and he would bloom with the Tigers. That's something else there. That's the end of it. But the thing we learn here, Ed, is if you party too much, you're probably going to zone out a little too much and start to lose your elite power and probably, at least to say the least, drop in the NFL mock draft. What do you think?
You could lose a bit of your focus, and it could seep into how you play on the field. It could affect in certain ways your production on the field. As on the whole aspect of it all, I think there's at the heart of it is we're not discussing or discerning Connor Cook's ability to play. We know he's good. We know he's at worst decent, if not adequate. Okay, I would consider his chances of being selected in the draft. You know, I think it's not so much of a stretch to suggest he would be a first round selection if a team was that risky enough. But you know, even still, a second or even a third round selection is not the end of the world from him. He's going to be seen as useful and as an expendable piece for somebody. So, because remember, Kirk Cousins started up as a backup. Now he's the starter in Washington. So who's to say Connor Cook can't go on a similar trajectory here? That's not what we're talking about here. The issue is whether or not Cook's attitude or what it may appear to be off the field. That's the real concern of here, because you know all these scouts and tipsters, you know, all these people can't be wrong if they're all reporting the same general consensus, whether it be they think he parties too much or they don't get that, or there's just something that's just off about him with his personality. You know, they got to be onto something at least, because it's very rare in this day and age to find 4-year starting senior quarterbacks in Division I football not being named the senior captain unless there's a legitimate reason or something else under the hood here. So the fact that, you know, that Cook was not named a captain for this team this year, and, you know, maybe we got a bit of a tip of the hand with the whole trophy presentation with Archie Griffin. I won't use that as my general consensus of what I think of him as his attitude. But who knows? Maybe if he shows that off a little bit more from time to time, as we get to know him a little bit more, once the the whole the public eye of being a potential quarterback in the NFL. If that gets them a little bit more, maybe we'll be being proven more of what these people have been saying about his attitude. That still remains to be seen, but you can't go the whole. You can't turn a blind eye to it either. You can't go, oh, what are you talking about? This is incredulous. This is nothing more than an innocent college kid joining the college. I'm like, please grow up with that, okay? Sometimes you gotta put away false ideals, okay, and pretty lily fantasies, and sometimes deal with what's out there for real, okay? And this is just one of those situations. So. For the media, or at least, for the majority of the media that seems to not want to step on any toes or try to, or not, disconcern the image of, oh, look at what the underdog Spartans have gone through, to build up their image, look at them, and they don't want to undercut that for whatever reason, even though sometimes there's some stuff they're reporting that may be legit, but they just refuse to do so. That's embarrassing on their part. Completely embarrassing.
Yeah, they're just out of their minds.
Are you out of your mind?
I mean, a perfect example would be the Max Bullough stuff. Like, at this point, it's never still been officially confirmed. We can only go by what we've seen and read from various reports, including one by the folks at the Detroit Sports Rag. I've still yet to see this appear in a local newspaper, but apparently the reason why Max Bullough was suspended for the 2014 Rose Bowl game was due to an unfortunate incident where he and a former high school teammate got liquored up, and Bullough beat the holy bejesus out of the guy. Yeah, and at per the request of the Bullough family. This is the Bullough family here, not it wasn't an NCAA violation nor a team violation, drug bust, whatever the case may be. It was, if you were to believe that article that was posted by the DSR in September of last year, it was an incident before Christmas. Bullough got into a fight, beat the other guy. The Bullough family paid for the in-person hospital bills, and at their request, Mark D'Antonio suspended him for the Rose Bowl game, and that's quite surprising because Max and his family are royalty of MSU. Grandfather played there as a guard, father played there as a linebacker, and of course he and then his brother Riley followed suit as linebackers as well. So, to see that, it was surprising when you heard news when it happened, like, really? Of all people, they suspended for this game was the reason. And for months and months and months, and even still today, it was never uncovered or at least reported publicly by the local media at the very least why the hell this happened. Even still to this day, it's been a bit of a running gag, but we're still waiting to hear, at least, from the Joe Rexrods of the world, and their perspective, like, why was Max Bullough suspended for that rule? So, that, again, speaks to a level of their lack of intentional fortitude, and sometimes reporting what is necessary, what needs to be done. As long as it's truthful, okay? Truthful. We don't need another Snyder and Rosenberg situation where because they feel no vendetta against a head coach, they decide to sabotage the entire damn program. We're not talking about that. But if you at least see something that is enough to report, then report it already.
Man, oh man, oh man. I mean, it's just... I'd like to thank you for revealing the real reason why Max Bullough was suspended. He went to a friend's, went to a bar and met somebody, and Bullough just slugged him, and his parents requested him to do that, you said?
Heard the request of the Bullough family, Mark D'Antonio suspended Max Bullough for Rose Bowl.
Oh my God.
Oh, man.
Wow.
The link, the story is still up there on the website. I will find posted and shared on my Twitter. You can find me and follow me at EdSmith313. I will post the link very shortly at the conclusion of this episode. So it has all details of what you need to know.
And I will retweet his tweet as soon as I can at DT2Phillips. Spiro just asked if our podcast was done. Spiro, if you're listening right now, the link to episode 180 on Spreaker is on my timeline right now.
Still going live as we speak.
If you want to call in, if you want to join in on the messenger call in, please do so. Otherwise, call me at 231-429-3668. Again, that number is 231-429-3668. Justin Spiro wants to call in here.
All right.
He will, I'll try to get him to call in on Messenger here. Hey, Spiro, is that you? Oh yeah, I forgot to put you on speaker. How's it going, Spiro?
It's going well. How are you?
Pretty good. Yeah, so Ed Smith just revealed the real reason why Max Bullock got suspended. He went out to a bar and got liquored up with some other guy, and he for some reason he slugged the guy per request of the Bulla family, and Ed Smith is gonna tweet out that article at Ed Smith 313 on Twitter.
How does he know that?
He actually found a source. I mean, yeah. Just a second. I'm going to try to get Ed to tweet this out right now.
Have you guys already discussed the Connor Cook issue and my whole issue with David Harns, that whole debate?
Yep, we did. And we are still live right now.
I'll just say I think David and I had an interesting debate. It was a spirited discussion. I think anyone that reads the exchange would agree. I think we made some good points. There's no question. Again, I don't know what you guys discussed. I don't know where you stand. I wasn't tuning in. I'm actually just now leaving the Tom Killer Kowalski Christmas party, which was inundated with media members. But I'll say this. I don't think there's a mass conspiracy of NFL executives and scouts that have just decided for no reason whatsoever to choose Connor Cook as the subject of their ire and hatred. There has to be something legitimate to these issues. And again, I can look at this on my own and say there are concerns with Connor Cook. You look at the captain thing is just one piece of the pie. And it's what everyone fixates on, but it's one piece of the pie. But it is a fact, something that has been backed up from my own experience. It has been backed up from the experience of people I trust that still attend that university. That Connor Cook is out 2 to 3 times a week, late into the night, heavily drinking. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's something I did when I was a student at Michigan State, but I am not going to be potentially the franchise quarterback for an NFL team in a few months. I mean, you're held to a higher standard just in the same way that somebody running for presidential office that wants to be president of the United States is subjected to a higher level of scrutiny. So, again, there's a sort of common retort that you see. Oh, he's a college kid. He can't have a few beers. I agree. It's no problem for a college kid having a few beers, but when you're out 3 times a week, Peyton Manning wasn't out 3 times a week when he was in Knoxville. You know, that Tom Brady wasn't in Ann Arbor. That you have to be a serious quarterback, a serious person to excel at that level. Even Ben Roethlisberger, who is a party boy, is a very serious NFL quarterback.
And you have to be a serious NFL quarterback like Manning, Brady, and Roethlisberger were.
It's too hard. Taylor, it's too hard. It's too hard to excel at that level if you are not completely 100% dedicated. Yeah, Ben Roethlisberger might like going out, but he's the biggest gym rat and film rat. The guy who lives at the practice facility. You talk to anybody associated with that team. Connor Cook's not lazy. No one is saying that he's lazy, but he has an acceptable level of work ethic, a good work ethic. But a good work ethic isn't enough to excel at that position in the National Football League. You have to be obsessed.
Exactly, and it's like an issue, like a social issue between the media and Connor Cook. Let me see here. Oh yeah. Ed Smith just tweeted out the link from Detroit Sports Rag, the real reason why Max Bullough was suspended for the 2014 Rose Bowl. Yeah, you tweeted about the Max Bullough story, Justin, and you still wanted to know this. You still wanted the mainstream media in the Detroit area to cover this. And here's the link right here. By Jeff Moss, the reason Max Bullough was suspended. Matt Charbonneau of the Detroit News didn't bother to tell us. Max Bullough was suspended by D'Antonio at the request of his family. As you probably know, Max's father, Shane, was a linebacker at MSU, and his grandfather, Hank, lined up as a guard on the Spartans' 1954 winning Rose Bowl team. Why had the Bullough family asked D'Antonio to suspend Max for that huge game? It would appear that the week before Christmas, an intoxicated Max got into a fight with a former high school teammate who was also inebriated, with a former teammate on the business of an incredible beating. The source went on to say that the Bulloughs paid the medical bills of the ex-teammate, not sure if a cherry was put on the top of that Sunday or not, and did everything within their power to make sure it didn't get into the press. The price for Bullough was missing the Rose Bowl. One wonders if D'Antonio would have taken this action without the family's prodding, especially given D'Antonio's fairly lax style of discipline, just like about 99% of Division I football coaches. The bizarre part of this story is that the truth is fairly innocuous. Kids, especially, college kids, especially drunk athletes, get into these sorts of fights all the time. Why not come clean instead of letting the internet message boards run rampant with stories of steroid abuse or something of the Brendan Gibbons variety? So that's the story. It's not very sexy, but now you know. We will update you further when we will find out where Jimmy Hoffa was buried or why Adam Oates was traded by the Red Wings. But that's the reason right there, Justin. And the Detroit media is still not wanting to face that kind of truth.
Well, if you followed that whole process, the report was what it was from Jeff Moss. It was something that we felt confident in sharing as a story, but that report was done not as a definitive report, but as a way of drawing out that was vindicated as true. Joe Rexrode saw the report that you just read and said that it was ridiculous and untrue. That's not what actually happened. So we did have someone that seemed to know what happened and that may have been true, and we ran with it when we normally wouldn't have as an attempt to bait the local media into denying it, in which case you can only deny it if you know what actually happened and know that we had it wrong. So we don't know if that's actually what happened. That's not the final word on that matter. But what we do know is that Graham Couch and Joe Rexrode are fairly certain about what actually did happen, whether we're right or not, and they have not pushed the right button to get that story. And here's the issue. I mean, I have a journalism degree from Michigan State, one of the finest journalism schools in the country. We are taught that you do everything you can as a reporter, as a journalist, to go to the end of the earth to get the story, to ascertain the information necessary to put together a fluent and comprehensive report. And I don't doubt that Joe Rexrode, Graham Couch, Matt Carbonell, etc., asked questions about it. I'm sure they were quite curious about it. But there was not this sense of urgency to report on what was probably the biggest scandal in Michigan State history in the last 10 years. You know, you have the senior captain, a member of a family that is essentially a royal family on that campus, suspended under very conspicuous circumstances before the biggest game in the program in 25 years. So there wasn't much enthusiasm for uncovering this. There wasn't a necessary level of urgency to get the story out. And in the absence of the ability to report the story appropriately and giving it its due attention, at the very least, there should have been an open and honest condemnation of Max Bola, qualified with the fact that we don't know exactly what happened, but look, anything this guy did in this situation that was serious enough to warrant a suspension at this moment was a selfish move.
Exactly, and that was just wrong.
What's your job as a journalist? This is the biggest story, biggest in terms of a scandal. In my lifetime. I'm almost 30 years old. This is the biggest scandal in Michigan State history in my lifetime, maybe ever. I'm not intimately familiar with the 1950s, but what's so bad is how many people know about it. This is the point I made in my exchange with David Harms at iSportsLab. Is if you have some murder where maybe there's two witnesses, they don't say a word. That's a hard story to get. That's hard. You got to get out of one of those two guys. Otherwise, you don't have the story. They're the only two witnesses there. Every single NFL executive and everyone working under those executives know exactly what happened. Max Bola said he disclosed it very openly in his pre-draft interviews before he went into the NFL. The amount of people that know what happened between his family, his friends, every single one of his teammates at Michigan State knew what happened. You're talking about in the hundreds, 400 or 500 people that know exactly what happened. How do you have that many people that know? You're a journalist. You get paid. This is all you do. Your job is to know, is to find out any way possible. It's unacceptable to not uncover that truth when at least 400 or 500 people know what happened. It's just unforgivable from a journalistic standpoint.
Well, Justin Spiro, I agree with everything you said there, and I thank you for being on this podcast to talk with me, and you guys can follow Justin Spiro on Twitter at Darko State News. Also follow Jeff Moss on Twitter at Jeff Moss DSR. He is the chief editor of the Detroit Sports Rag. Spiro's the number 2 guy. You can catch both of those guys on the Detroit Sports Rag podcast every Tuesday late afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern on Podcast Detroit, archived on SoundCloud. Thanks again so much for calling in, Justin.
No problem. Have a good night. I think you do a great job. Enjoy your show. Have a good evening.
Thanks for being on the Detroit Sports Truth, Justin. Long live the DSR.
Long live the DSR. Take care, buddy.
Yep, thanks. Justin Spiro, ladies and gentlemen. So, I'm getting back Ed Smith here.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Ed. Just got done with Justin Spiro's call. Did you happen to listen to the show and listen to what he had to say?
I'm deeply sorry. I was dealing with a brief call, personal matters. I apologize for that. But I was going to ask, how did the call go? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it went great. Spiro was explaining how a journalist was supposed to cover a very, very big, gigantic story about one of the biggest scandals occurring in MSU history, the first one in 10 years, one of the most disappointing MSU scandals in 10 years, and how the journalists in the Detroit area and in the national media, the NFL beat writers and people and such people are not having the guts to cover all that stuff. And Spiro's a great journalist, and so is Jeff Moss. You guys got to follow up. You guys got to follow those guys at Jeff Moss DSR and at Darko State News. Listen, they will touch up more on that next Tuesday at 5 on Podcast Detroit, archived on SoundCloud on episode 10 of the Detroit Sports Rag podcast. But I'm pretty sure the Detroit Sports Truth episode 180 here on Spreaker will always have it archived. So why don't we go ahead and move on here. That is all the MSU football that we've covered here, especially from Justin Spiro. I'd like to thank him for coming on the show and giving me credit.
Definitely.
And I like to give him credit. So we are going to move on to the Detroit pro teams who have sucked as of late.
Every team in this state sucks. Period.
And first off, we touch on the lowly Detroit Lions.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
They play in New Orleans against the Saints on ESPN Monday Night Football at 8:25. Lions are 4-9. Their playoff chances already dashed officially after losing to the lowly Rams 21-14 this past Sunday. And the Saints are another tough team. Perhaps the Lions may lose that one. You got some analysis on that one, don't you, Ed?
Yeah, I would say that this isn't quite a loaded and vaunted Saints team that A, won the Super Bowl back in 2009, or B, was a formidable contender in the years since. But you still have Drew Brees as your starting quarterback. That's always going to be a plus. You would have, I would consider, a healthy, an adequate, decent running game and a nice tandem of Mark Ingram and C.J. Spiller. Now, I may be wrong on that one because I'm not sure if Mark Ingram still plays for the Saints, but no, C.J. Spiller is. At least I should know. He's on my fantasy team, for God's sakes. Defense may be bad, but your offense can still do some damage. Because, like I said, you have Drew Brees, your quarterback, and plus you're at home. And as we've seen in recent years, the Saints, when they're on the road, they're very middle of the road to just flat out bad. But when they're at home, it's like the fact that they know whether it's they have a comfortability level, they feed off their crowd, or they're familiar with their turf. Whatever the case may be, they're a completely different team altogether, and it definitely shows on the scoreboard on most games. The Lions know of that firsthand, because the last two times that the Lions traveled down to New Orleans to face the Saints in the Superdome, the defense gave up 40 points in both of those occasions. One of those of which was a playoff game, which the Lions looked to be on the verge of getting close into it, possibly winning. For again, the offense just couldn't keep up, and the defense couldn't get stopped. So I expect this game to be closer. I don't expect it to be a high score affair like the last occasions. It really depends on whether or not the Lions offense can perform better than New Orleans offense. That's what it says to me. It's a battle of two struggling offenses. It may seem that Detroit's defense is better than New Orleans, but only slightly. All it's going to come down to really is, can Detroit hang on to the ball? Can they establish some sort of running game? And can they keep Matt Stafford protected? Those are the three keys that they're going to have to follow if they want to come out of St. Louis. I keep saying St. Louis. Come out of New Orleans with a victory against. As for New Orleans, just follow the blueprint on the other teams that have gotten wins over the Lions this season have done. Namely, pressure Matthew Stafford. If you get good enough pressure on Stafford, you're going to hit him up, ding him up, or with your pressure, cause him to make mistakes. So that's the one key right there if you're in New Orleans. And the second on your end will be, don't make any mistakes of your own. Breeze cannot afford to make any mistakes, whether it be fumbles, interceptions, bad throws, bad passes that could be taken advantage of and lead to Lions points. Because in my view, the Lions secondary, even though it's not too much of a difference, it is at least slightly better in my view than the last two occasions that this Saints team has held Saints in New Orleans. So that would be another indicator, another matchup, what Drew Brees does against this particular Lions secondary this time around. And lastly, it's going to come down to, I think, in my view, as it was the last two times in the between the Saints and Lions in the Superdome, who can establish the running game. Can it be Amir Abdullah using his speed out of the backfield, or be toss plays, sweeps, or even screen plays out of the backfield, mixed in with some power running of Joyke Bell, or can C.J. Spiller recreate some of the little magic that he had on the Sunday night game that won the Saints in overtime? Can he recreate some of that a little bit here against this Lions defense? For the most part, seems to be okay at stopping the run, but whether it be a key third down situation or whatever the case may be, can't, on most occasions, can't quite find that clutch play. It's really it's going to come down to all those factors. And I will take the home team, because I think the Lions, at this point of their season, you're not making it off. So why do you even jeopardize your draft hopes here by going on a pointless winning streak at the end of the season? You've already fired your GM, you've already fired your president. So only person left to fire is your head coach. And I think if you keep losing enough games as you close out this season, you will have no choice but to relieve Jim Caldwell of his head coaching duties. So I expect the Saints to win this one. I think it will play out closer to the Seattle game that the Lions also played on Monday night. It'll be back and forth. The Lions will have some momentum early on. They'll withstand whatever early onslaught that New Orleans try to put on them. And at the end, it's going to be to who will make the last mistake. And unfortunately, I expect the Lions once again, or I can expect St. Louis to make a key stand, whether defensively or offensively, and use that as a catalyst to help lead the victory. So I predict the Saints to win. I think it'll be a score of 24 to the Lions 20.
Oh, very close one, huh?
Yep, I just see this playing out just like it was the Seattle game. It will be more definitive though.
Except without that dumb call that the referees made. Admittedly, they would have admitted they made a mistake too.
expect, hopefully, less controversy this time around involving the dudes in the zebra outfits.
Right. So, moving on to the Red Wings. They continue their homestand Friday against the Vancouver Canucks at 7:30 and Sunday against the Calgary Flames Sunday at 7. Canucks stand in 10th place right now in the Western Conference, but the Calgary Flames are burning red hot as of late. But the third period woes I'll get to in a minute. But the Canucks right now, try to analyze them for me if you can.
Vancouver, it's not quite the team that went to the Cup final a few years back, before falling in 7 games to the Boston Bruins in 2010. But they're still, I would say, an okay team at best.
2011.
You don't expect them. Yeah, 2011. Excuse me. Pardon me. You don't expect to see them, try to make a deep run for the playoffs this year, but depending on where they may fall in the conference, if few things go their way, they could probably just try to make an appearance in the first round. Depending on how better can they get within their own division, and B, can they rely on certain teams ahead of them to stumble a bit, where they can capitalize and jump ahead for a few spots in the conference standings. So that's all we can say in terms of what this current Vancouver team looks like now, as they prepare to face the Wings tomorrow night.
And then the Calgary Flames, they've been on a winning streak as of late, and they're another team to watch in the Western Conference.
Yeah, it's again, it may come down to one of these two teams in terms of getting a lower seed or one of the final playoff spots in the West. It may very well be that. This isn't exactly your vintage Calgary Flames team either, since they no longer have their perennial talent, Ginla, who is now with, of all teams, the Colorado Avalanche. But these are two games to look out for in terms of not just what the Wings can do within their own conference or within their own division, but what can they do against other teams throughout the league. And this, of course, includes teams in the Western Conference. Just a thing to look out for, whether it be to scout for something for a potential playoff series down the road, or whatever the case may be, continuing with certain areas.
The Canucks are actually in a 4-way tie for 10th place at 30 points with the Winnipeg Jets, Arizona Coyotes, and Edmonton Oilers, while the Calgary Flames are in 9th place at 32 points, trailing the Avs by 1 point. The Avs have 33 points. They've won 4 in a row after losing at home to the Penguins a week ago. So about those third period woes again. There was this article by the Rooster, Bill Roos, the managing editor of DetroitRedWings.com. It was posted this past Wednesday at 5:25 p.m. Eastern. Justin Ablocator told him, quote, usually if you get that next goal, you get a 2-goal lead in games, you pretty much seal it. We just got to do a better job of not sitting back on our heels and pushing back on teams, quote unquote. I think I wish Applicator would have been a little more specific on that.
When were you so soft?
The Wings came off a demoralizing 2-1 regulation loss to the Buffalo Sabres. of all teams. They have squandered 9 third-period leads in the past 14 games, and they have been outscored in the third period 31-21 this season. Only Pittsburgh with 20 and Philadelphia 18, Penguins and Flyers, have scored fewer third-period goals. The problem facing the Wings is that third-period collapses like Monday have almost become predictable. And there's some information about assistant coach Tony Granato. He said, doing a little work, he said the off-ice work was on the calendar to boost the players' conditioning and strength. He oversaw Wednesday's practice filling in for Coach Jeff Blashill, who was in Cleveland to see the Grand Rapids Griffins face off against Lake Erie, trying to figure out who he could call up. I suggest they call up Athanasiou and Mantha. So that's about it. A side note, Citizen Kane, Patrick Kane, 26-point game. His 26-game point streak came to an end the past Wednesday. When they got shut out by the Avs 3-0 on Wednesday Night Rivalry. But that's Advocator said another thing. The other team's going to be pushing hard and pressing for that next goal, so you just got to be ready and prepared for that team to come out strong and put pucks on net. I didn't think we necessarily turned the puck over. I don't think we spent a lot of time in their zone. We got to do a better job in that, and a better job of late in games of just executing. You got to, unquote, is it to execute in the in the opponent's net. You got to dig around the goaltender and make some kind of play. Don't just shoot it right at the goaltender, like I pointed out many times. I think our listeners know the drill, at least.
Yeah, it bears no mention, right, to repeat the constant points we've hammered home here now the past few weeks of what this team has done in the third period, what they've been very dreadful of doing in the third period, and what they need to get better at doing in the third period. So it bears no mention to repeat right here. But yeah.
Yep. Nicholas Cronwall, the defenseman, said, if you get 2 goals, nothing there, quote unquote, I'm not going to say that you're putting the game away, but you're definitely making it harder for them. I would maybe it would be like a slowly but surely start for the Wings in the third period. That would be part of their game plan from here on out, from this upcoming Friday on out. And just get a goal early in the third period to extend their goal lead to 2, and maybe play some defense and prevent them scoring as best you can, and then maybe score another to lead by 3. So that right there is the game plan for the Red Wings. So with all that being said, let's go on to the Pistons.
Left sideline 3, and he answers.
The Pistons end their homestand Friday night at the Palace against the Chicago Bulls before taking 3 days rest and then traveling to South Beach and playing the Miami Heat, Dwayne Wade and company. Want to give a little analysis on the Chicago Bulls?
Yeah, I would say that I expect a bit of a more tougher game. And that's crazy enough to say because the last time that these two teams played, it went into overtime. It's actually I probably could expect to see a different result since it is on the road in the United Center, and it's not been very.
Is it at the United Center? Hang on a
Yeah,
minute.
it's going to be in Chicago. It's going to be in Chicago. The Pistons had their last home game, the game before against Boston. That'll be their last game. They're at home at the Palace until after Christmas, where they'll be facing once again the Boston Celtics. But back to Chicago, you still have Derrick Rose for whether or not you think there's still anything left in the tank for him, whether it be his health or whatever the case may be in regards to his career or even his place in Chicago. He can still light up and be a very dangerous player any given night on the court. And with the current not templates, but the current plays that they have set in stone there, where Joakim Noah has been there for years, or recent huge discoveries like Jimmy Walker. Those are very, very good variables that Chicago can use to their advantage, and any one of those three could get the Pistons a very long night. So we'll have to see what happens in that regard. But I will mention, though, while we're on the subject of the Pistons, bigger news that we've uncovered in the past, that has been reported upon in the past couple of days or so, is that we may very well be seeing the return of Brandon Jennings to our Pistons. In a tweet that Jennings set out a few days back, but was quickly deleted, but was screen capped by, I believe, the good folks at DetroitBadBoys.com, the SB Nation affiliate for the Pistons. It seemed that Jennings made a possible hint that he would be, in fact, be playing in a D-League affiliate game this Saturday. And now, as was confirmed earlier today by Keith Langolis, you can follow him on Twitter at Keith_Langolis, Langlois, said that, quote, Brandon Jennings will play for Grand Rapids D-League on Saturday, said Stan Van Gundy. And so there will be the Grand Rapids Drive, that's the Pistons D-League affiliate. It seems that Jennings will at least play one game down in D-League to test himself before he officially rejoins the team. And that speaks a lot to Jennings here, because since he's a veteran, it was well within his rights where he did not have to agree to play in the D-League. He would have been more than willing to wait to play in an actual NBA regular season game if he wanted to. But if it was on his own accord or in agreement with Stan Van Gundy, whatever the case may be, or maybe he felt concerned about his minutes, whatever it was, he took upon himself, hey, let me test myself, get back into the groove of things, work off this rust from this series Achilles injury that he suffered, and he'll be testing him. So we'll get his first glimpse of him this Saturday as he plays for Grand Rapids, where he may be able to join the team on Tuesday in Miami against the Heat. Now, that could be a possibility. However, others have stated originally before the update that Jennings was set to return to the Pistons December 29th in Madison Square Garden, live from New York against the Knicks. But now the recent update, courtesy of Langolis, is that Jennings might be able to return a week earlier, hence him playing this Saturday in the D-League. So if we don't see Jennings officially on Tuesday, then more than likely we will see him within that very next week. It could be the 26th at home against the Celtics, or it could be the 29th on the road in Madison Square Garden against the Knicks. But suffice to say, this is very, very pleasing news, because at the very least, you're going to get someone who will lead high-quality production off the bench for the Pistons. And if there was any weaknesses you could pinpoint on this team, this is one big one. So, very great to see Jennings come back. It is desperately needed. As he works his way back to regular form from this injury, you have to wonder, would it be something in terms of the lineup adjustments? What would you do to at least keep the tandem of Jackson and Jennings on the field? Because when both of these guys are on the floor, I should say court instead of field. But with both those guys on the floor, couple that with Andre Drummond's usual production of almost a double-double per night, you have yourself a very prolific offensive team potentially in the works here. But in terms of that, would you move Jackson to the 2, keep Jennings at the 1, and either put Kentavious Caldwell-Pope at 3, or just bring him off the bench? That would probably be my guess, because you still got Marcus Morris. He's doing fine at small forward, and then you got outside Ilya Silva at the 4 at power forward. So eventually, I think you might see a lineup where it'll have Jennings at point, Jackson at the 2 at shooting guard, Marcus Morris at the 3 at small forward, Ilya Silva at the 4 at power forward, and of course Andre Drummond at center at the 5. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. It's very great to see potentially Brandon Jennings on his way back to the Pistons.
So the Pistons start a 3-game road trip in Chicago, and then in Miami on Tuesday, and then in Atlanta on Wednesday, 2 days before Christmas Day. Then they return home the day after Christmas. They play the Celtics at the Palace of Auburn Hills at 7:30 again. Great to see Brendan Jennings back again. One last thing before we wrap it up. One of the keys to each game is the Pistons need to defend the 3-point line a lot better. I see against the last game against the Celtics at the Palace, the Pistons were still not defending the arc. Nobody was there while the Celtics shooters were wide open, sinking those threes, trying to come back into that game, and the Pistons were still able to hold them off for a 119 to 116 win, and it was just driving me crazy.
It was like they were trying to see if they could top themselves for giving away the game against the Clippers. Only this time they will be doing it against the Celtics. Once again, the key was the same prevalent theme was not defending well along the arc and just giving up three-pointer after three-pointer. It's how the Clippers tied it up and eventually beat the Pistons, especially when Andre Drummond, for some insane, odd reason, decided to double-team Blake Griffin, leaving Jamal Crawford all alone by himself when it forced Marcus Morris to guard the paint, which led, of course, to that go-ahead game-winning 3. And it almost bit them again in the backside against the Celtics, where Isaiah Thomas had made it a very close one-possession game with a few seconds left with a late 3, capping off his 38-point night. So that's going to be an area of contention where the Pistons must get better defensively as this season progresses. Whether it be adopting a few schemes, different zones, whatever the case may be, they got to guard that three-point line better, period. Because if you want to try to get yourself a playoff spot within the East, the East is a little bit better this year than expected, or at least seen in previous years. So some of these teams are going to be hungry, and they're going to be gunning and shooting and do whatever they can to win some games as we get into the second half of the season. In the next few weeks and months here. So one of those keys will be depending on three-point shooting. Now the Pistons, you have some players that can shoot deep, KCP and Reggie Jackson, for example, but they need to do better. If it means starting on a practice amongst themselves, fine, but you need to develop some kind of plan, some type of rhythm, some type of pattern, consistency in guarding the three-point line, because if you get killed by three-point shooting, you're not going to be able to win that many games in this league nowadays. So, you can work the 3, but you also got to defend the 3. The Pistons must defend the 3 much better than what we've been seeing previously.
# defend the 3. I would go either a 3-2 zone or a man-to-man or a 4-1 zone. Anything you can do to defend the 3. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. So you gotta be, now granted, you gotta know what you're doing with this zone. You gotta have the right personnel out there, and you also gotta practice it well enough to where players won't get confused of where they're supposed to go where the ball's being moved, because it can free open a player beyond that perimeter, and it gives them a good open look. So, this may be something that we as fans have to be patient for, but you would have to hope they would get it done sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. So another hashtag campaign would be defend the three and hashtag close it down.
I'll just adopt a saying, a mantra from our very own head coach Stan Van Gundy: form a effing wall. That would be my approach to defend the three. Form a wall.
Form a wall. Form a 3-point wall, I would say.
There you go.
Yep. So that's going to wrap it up. Ed, I'd like to thank you for helping me out here. We would like to thank Justin Spiro for coming on and being on the show and explaining himself.
Thanks to Justin. Thank you.
Yep.
Gigantic thanks to Justin.
Yep. Credit goes to Justin Spiro.
Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Darko State News. The co-main of the Detroit Sports Rag, along with Jeff Moss. You can follow him on Twitter at Jeff Moss, the SR as well.
And you can listen to those guys on the Detroit Sports Rag podcast once again every Tuesday late afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern on Podcast Detroit. Next week will be episode 10 of the DSR podcast. And for us, that wraps up episode 180 on the Detroit Sports Truth. For Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. Thanks again, Ed.
You're welcome, Taylor. Have a good night, everybody, and stay safe.
Yep, we'll talk Monday at midnight or sometime later after the Lions-Saints game on Monday Night Football. And so, another more informative episode in the can, as Rush Limbaugh would say. And if there's anything you fans want more of or less of on our podcast, please let us know. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
They're not the food.